Public defender or private lawyer? Is there a difference? Does it matter? Hi, I'm Jeff Hampton with the Hampton Law Firm. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about the difference between having a private lawyer or having a public defender on a criminal case. And by the way, if you wait around to the end of this video, I'll also give you a free ebook, What to Do If You Have Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Okay, let's start with a public defender. I want to break this down first. Many people know what it is. You have a constitutional right in the United States to have an attorney represent you if you are being charged with at least a Class B or arrestable misdemeanor all the way up to a first-degree felony. So essentially, if you are subject to a possible arrest, you have the right to have an attorney at least appointed to you if you cannot afford one. But let's talk about this. What is the benefit to a public defender? Well, the positive is that it's supposed to be free. Or is it? By the way, I'm only going to speak about Texas law, and I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about what happens in North Texas. But I do want you to understand, I'm actually going to have a follow-up video to this where I get into more detail about how sometimes having a public defender is not free. Some of these judges, particularly if you end up on a probation, will actually make you pay for all of those attorney's fees that the county paid towards that lawyer as a condition of your probation. They'll make it a condition for you to pay that back, which obviously I have some concerns with. If you have a constitutional right to an attorney, and many clients that end up getting having an court-appointed attorney are shocked by that, and they can't believe it because they didn't realize they were going to end up having to pay for their court-appointed attorney. Okay, so that's really the only positive to a court-appointed lawyer. What are some of the negatives? Well, number one, the justice system many times sets up a disincentive for a court-appointed attorney to work. What do I mean by that? Well, particularly in the North Texas area, and I'll talk about Tarrant County for a minute, and you'll find this some in surrounding counties. What happens is that the judges approve a certain schedule of hourly pay or flat fee pay. And so recently, many of the judges in the North Texas area have tried to limit how much an attorney can be paid on court-appointed cases. They do this particularly with misdemeanor cases. They want to limit how much someone can make hourly on a court-appointed case, but yet they incentivize and they pay more for court appearances. Now, what does that mean? Well, what that can tend to do is make a court-appointed attorney create an incentive to show up to court, but maybe not so much of an incentive to return your phone calls or to have meetings with you or to communicate at all. So understand, sometimes the justice system itself creates a disincentive for that court-appointed attorney to do work, to communicate with you, and to help you. So that's a problem. That's one negative. Number two is, many of you already know this, but those attorneys that only do court-appointed work tend to be less talented lawyers. They don't have a retained database. They don't have a retained set of clients for which they are working and helping. So as a result of that, they're completely reliant and dependent upon the court-appointed system in order to make their living. So as a result of that, many times they are less talented attorneys that are involved, okay? Now, the next point I want to talk about is, and look, this is just the reality, almost the kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit to help you understand how this works. Many times court-appointed attorneys are treated differently. I'm going to give you an example of this. I have seen this happen many times in the courts of North Texas, where a judge will call up a lawyer and say, hey, quick question. I know you're asking for more time. Are you retained or are you appointed? And think about the question for a second. Think about how disturbing that question is. If the answer is, I'm appointed, the judge will say, no, we can't keep passing the case. You need to make a decision, or we're going to move you onto the trial docket. Maybe I need to have a discussion with your client. And here's why. The way that it works in many of the North Texas courts is that the judges have a budget by which they pay court-appointed attorneys. And of course, commissioners' courts judge the judges based on how well they manage their budget. And so many times these judges do not want to pay the court-appointed attorney attorney very much money on their cases. In fact, some judges are notorious for cutting court-appointed attorneys' bills. And this is common knowledge within attorney circles, but the reality of it is it ends up creating a disincentive where the court actually treats court-appointed attorneys in a less favorable way. Because if you are a retained attorney, now the judge knows they're not having to pay the bill. Guess what they do? Yeah, no problem. We'll go ahead and agree to reset the case for you. We'll give you more time, or we'll provide you that more flexibility. These are the things that people don't understand that can happen if you end up with a court-appointed attorney, okay? Now, let's move on to a hired attorney. Let's first examine some of the positives when you make a decision to hire your own criminal lawyer. Number one, obviously you get to control who you have. With a court-appointed attorney, the judge just gives you who you get. You don't get to choose who you end up with, and it's the luck of the draw, really. It's almost a lottery system. They just throw you on someone. They might be good, they may be terrible, but you don't get a choice in that. But when you hire an attorney, you obviously have the opportunity to interview multiple lawyers. You can ask them the tough questions. You can make sure they know what they're talking about. And then as a result of that, you can make a decision about who, what type of personality they have, and if they fit for you, and to make sure you have a team of lawyers working in your best interest. So that's advantage number one. Number two is ideally, because of the way that the system works, you should have more personal attention and the opportunity to not be handcuffed by the criminal justice system by the way that the court system treats appointed attorneys. So as a result of that, you're detached from that. The court doesn't have as much control over you, so your retained lawyer should be able to provide you more attention because they're not being beholden to the court system, okay? Then number three, the court will give you more flexibility. That's just the reality of the way that it works. The judge can find out if your lawyer is either an appointed attorney or a retained attorney. And if that judge sees that he's appointed, he or she is an appointed attorney, you will have less flexibility and less control. So that flexibility will exist if you've hired a good criminal lawyer for your case. Finally, the payment incentive the payment structure creates an incentive for your hired attorney to work for you. It's not based upon dragging something out or trying to appease a judge. Essentially, you've assigned a contract, a legal agreement with your lawyer on what's expected from both ends, and you have that control with your lawyer to partner up in order to get you a very good result for your case. Okay, those are the positives, okay? And many times you deal with better attorneys when they have their own established practice that is not reliant upon the legal system for court-appointed work. Now, what's the negative? The big negative that people see with hiring an attorney is obviously you have got to find the balance between hiring an attorney that you can afford and yet also being able to make sure that you are, going to be assisted in your criminal charge. So what is it? You know that some of the best attorneys may charge a higher fee. Okay, so the ideal thing for you to do is to put in the time and effort to make sure you've spoken to a lawyer who is both able to get you that result that you're seeking after, yet they can explain to you and communicate what you need, but yet it's also something that you can afford to do. Now that's a challenge, and sometimes people give up in that process, but I encourage you, the most important thing for you to know to do is to understand the positives, the negatives. There's always a cost-benefit analysis when you're trying to make a decision between a court-appointed attorney or hiring your own lawyer, okay? Now, I promised you a free ebook at the end of this video, and all you have to do is click through down into the YouTube section, and you'll see in the description an opportunity to click on an email for which we will input your email address, and we'll send that over to you, and it is what to do if you have been charged with a crime in Texas. I want to thank you again for being on this video today and watching this. If you like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video. I'll send you more great content just like this. Thanks again.